Welcome back to the Aberdeen Audiology YouTube channel. I'm Dr. Tom Goyne, Chief Audiology Officer at Aberdeen Audiology. If you're not familiar with us, we have offices in the Philadelphia suburbs, Wayne, Malvern, Westchester, and of course, we're available over telehealth as well. If we can be of service, let us know. Speaking of being of service, I hope if you've watched some of our videos in the past, I hope you're finding those valuable. We've got videos on tinnitus. We've got videos on balance, videos on hearing aids, videos on auditory processing, which is sort of something I'm going to get into today. But what I really want to get into specifically is the value of auditory training for children with hearing loss. It is a highly underrated tool, and I'm hoping maybe we can, bring the ratings up a little bit, so to speak. So, at any rate, before I get into auditory training itself, I need to sort of do a little bit of groundwork here on the nature of today's hearing aids and hearing loss today. So, first of all, today's hearing aids are amazing. If I think about what hearing aids can do today versus what they could do at the beginning of my career, it's just astounding. And so they do a wonderful job. There's almost never any whistling. There's rarely occlusion. They do a decent job of separating speech from noise. Sometimes people overestimate how well they do that, but they do it fairly well. They also have fun features now, such as being waterproof, and Bluetooth are inside them. So they've really, really come a long way. And so I don't know what we would do without them, but there are some limitations to what today's hearing aids can do. For one thing, they have difficulty providing much amplification past 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 hertz. Usually about 4,000 or 5,000 hertz. And the reason for that is it's not that the manufacturers of the hearing aids don't find those frequencies valuable. They know those frequencies are valuable for understanding speech. But the fact is that the very small microphones on the hearing aids and the very small loudspeakers on the hearing aids just simply aren't capable of generating enough sound pressure to make the very soft sounds of speech, but important sounds of speech, that are in that frequency range audible, even for people with even a mild amount of hearing loss. And so, again, they provide great audibility today, but there is a little bit that they just simply can't amplify. And then there's some other limitations with hearing aids, not necessarily hearing aids themselves, it's just the nature of today's hearing loss, sensorineural hearing loss. And that is that, and this is something that also flies under the radar a bit. A lot of people, when they hear about hearing loss, they think of the obvious, a loss of hearing. You don't detect soft sounds as well as you should. But what really goes unnoticed, or even by audiologists, we sometimes tend to accidentally forget about it, is that along with sensorineural hearing loss, which is the most common type today, there's what we call a broadening of the tuning curves, or a decrease in resolution, or an increase in distortion. So it's not just a loss of hearing sensitivity, it's also an increase in distortion or a loss of resolution. And so why is that important? Well, that means that for a person with sensorineural hearing loss, which pretty much everyone using hearing aids today has, that just sort of means that two sounds have to be much more different for them to detect the difference. So in other words, if you have normal hearing, two sounds can be really close together, and you're probably going to hear the difference between those. But if you have some sensorineural hearing loss, then the sounds have to get further apart before you can detect a difference. Now, why do we care about that? Well, if you think about it, the S sound and the SH sound sh, and the TH sound and the F sound, they are all very, very similar acoustically. You can even hit the pause button right now and make those sounds yourself. And you'll see acoustically, they are very, very similar. And so while today's hearing aids certainly allow someone to detect those sounds, they may not provide enough audibility for the patient to hear the difference in those sounds. Okay. So there's that issue. And that's also a problem when you're in competing noise. It makes it more difficult for a person to hear and understand speech in the presence of competing noise, in particular when that competing noise is other voices. So because of just the hardware limitations we have with hearing aids, and because of the nature of sensorineural hearing loss, there's a limit to what today's hearing aids can do to help people. And again, they are amazing. They're fantastic. I don't know what we would do without them, but there is a limit. And so, well, what do we do about that? Well, there's some options. One option in particular for children is you can use remote microphones. That's something where a teacher or a coach or even a parent would wear a microphone and their voice would be picked up by the mic, and then it's beamed directly into the hearing aids. Those things work really, really well. The research shows they work really, really well. The research even shows that even normal hearing kids would do better in school if they had those devices. But there's some problems with using those. For one thing, kids are sometimes resistant to using them. I've even seen where teachers are a little resistant to using them for some reason. And then also, you can't always give someone a microphone to use in order to hear them better. Let's take the example of a coach. Let's say your child is playing soccer or baseball or something like that, softball, and you have the coach wearing a microphone. Well, if he or she needs to tell another player something on the side that's totally irrelevant to your child, then they may or may not forget to hit mute, and so now there's confusion. So again, they work really well, but there's some difficulties with them. And then on top of that, just when you get into the real world, once you're out of school, it's going to be difficult to implement that technology everywhere. And so another tool, though, and this is what I really wanted to talk about today, is auditory training. And so this is something where sort of almost like physical therapy for a part of the body, we do auditory therapy where we help the brain process sounds better, in particular speech better. So, a lot of times we're using auditory training for people who have normal peripheral hearing, but their brain just has a hard time making sense of speech. Here, we are attempting to improve auditory processing. The difference is we need the auditory processing to be better than average. In other words, people with sensorineural hearing loss need to have better than average auditory processing. And so, because again, not all the sounds are making it there. Even if they are, there's difficulty hearing the difference in them because of the distortions in the inner ear that I talked about earlier. So we need the brain to do a better job with auditory processing than someone who has normal peripheral hearing. What do we do in auditory training? Well, we do a combination of things, and all of that sort of adds up to improve one's ability to understand what they hear, and I should say, remember what they hear too. Sometimes when people are struggling so hard to understand what they're hearing, they don't have enough cognitive resources left. And this is not an IQ thing. This is just the limits of the human brain, any human brain. If you're really struggling to understand what you're hearing, you don't have enough cognitive resources left always to really retain it and let it really, ingrain in your memory. So we do a few things in auditory training. We do what's called phonemic training, where we teach the brain to be quicker and more accurate in terms of hearing the difference in the phonemes, the individual sounds of speech, the ahs, the is, the oos, the s's, the th combinations, the f's, the p's, the b's. we do a lot of drilling with that and exercises with that to get the brain hearing the difference in those quicker, faster, more accurately. We also do some things with listening to speech and noise. Believe it or not, that is something that if it is practiced systematically and methodically under the direction of an audiologist, you can actually improve one's ability to understand speech and noise. And then we also do some things with auditory recall or auditory memory, helping the brain remember what it hears better. And so really, there's a ton of research that shows that this works for both children and adults. But frankly, it's a little bit easier to do with a child because their brain learns easier, rewires easier. The younger we are, as much as I hate to admit this, the younger we are, the easier it is for our brain to learn new skills and adapt, rewire. It's called neuroplasticity, and we can really leverage that in folks under the age of 30, really, even 24, 25 sometimes. But really, but in a child, a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old, an 8-year-old, we can really make some significant headway. And what's really cool is you don't necessarily have to come into our offices to do this. We can do it over video. Pretty much all of the success we've had with auditory training has been over video. We do this with folks who live 2 or 3 hours away from our offices, and we do it with folks who live 5 minutes away from our offices. It's just logistically, in today's day and age, with people, running everywhere for activities and clubs and sports and lessons and tutors, just to be able to do it from your house and not have to figure out, okay, how am I going to drive there, get my kid there, do the thing, bring them back, get them to this other thing, get their homework done, and all the stuff that comes with life here in the 2020s. It's just much easier to do it over Zoom, and it's just as effective. So if you are in Pennsylvania, or if you can get to us at least once here in Pennsylvania, and you're wondering if this would help your child, you're welcome to come on in for a visit, or I'm even happy to chat over video and see if this is something that would make sense for your child. So once again, we're Aberdeen Audiology, Philadelphia suburbs. I hope you found this useful. I hope you found this helpful. And feel free to come back to the channel. We're going to keep cranking out some of these videos. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.